Well, hello, this is Adam. It's not every day that you get to admire Ford's best for 1968. And no, I don't mean the Mustang or the Cougar. I mean the LTD Brougham four-door hardtop and the Mercury Park Lane Brougham four-door hardtop. It's a Brougham invasion from what I would say is the best year for Ford products. I think 1968 was arguably the best year that they had. Really nice styling, great engines and transmissions, excellent interiors, great fit and finish for the era. I think this is peak FOMOCO, as it was called back in the day. So we'll walk around these two vehicles and talk a little bit about the differences between them, because they have a similar platform, but a number of differences. The first is that this LTD rides atop 119-inch wheelbase, while the Park Lane Brougham rides atop 123-inch wheelbase. So the more expensive car, you got more overall length and a little bit more space, but you can see the overhangs too on this Park Lane are ridiculous. Look at that rear overhang. That is just awesome. You don't see that on cars anymore today. Designers always want to push the wheels out to the corners. But there's something stately about those proportions. And there is some rear overhang for sure on the LTD, but it's not nearly the same. So you did get a bit more length overall when you bought the Mercury, and that was true for the Lincolns as well, which had an even longer wheelbase. The second thing is that obviously the styling themes are very different. Ford's LTD in this time period had this crown logo. You can see here in this beautiful emblem. Just looks like a piece of jewelry on the sail panel here. And you have a similar crown in the middle of the steering wheel and this beautiful badge on the trunk. And you see when you pull away, that crown motif comes through in the styling everywhere. See it with the quarter panel tip and then the middle of the trunk deck lid bulge there, and then again over here. And you kind of get it even in the taillights where it's scalloped and then has this raised section for the reverse light and then scalloped again on the lower. You get it on the body side section that kind of goes out to a crease here in the middle and then back in again. Unfortunately, the body side molding on this car is precluding you from really viewing that in its entirety. And you get it even on the front end. Of course, you have a bit of this power dome hood look as well. But overall, that crown theme, you can see it here with the fender tips, and then in the middle is the pervasive theme for the LTD. Even the bumpers carry that, crown theme if you were to look at it in plan view or from the top down. I just think it's a spectacular design. It's not quite General Motors-y. Ford, there was always something a little bit awkward about their styling in these years, I think, at least personal opinion. I think it's a great looking car, but it doesn't just look quite right. Something in the side profile, I can't quite put my finger on it. Might be just the angle of this overhang and how it goes up there. I don't know. I'm not a designer. But you can see this body side here it's not just a feature line, it's got like a little fillet, and then this has an apex here to the feature line, and then a fillet on the underside, which you can see if I open the door. Notice what it looks like here. And on the Mercury, you really just have a feature line, a straight feature line across that doesn't have a similar theme. And again, you can see it if I open the door there, what it looks like. You do have one thing, which is the great quality of the Ford door closures during this period. They just sound so solid. And it's interesting, the LTD has hidden headlights clearly. That was the first year of the hidden headlights for the LTD. And the Mercury, the up-level car, does not. It has exposed headlights. Although you would think, you can see the grille clearly has that Cougar theme going to it. The horizontal rib theme. It almost looks like the headlights should have been hidden, but they were not. Probably some finance cost-cutting move. Of course, you would do that on the up-level Mercury and give the lower-end LTD something to talk about. Now, for 1968, there were 60,000 of these four-door hardtops made of the LTDs. And there were about 10,400 of these Park Lane four-door hardtops made. That includes both the Brougham trim and the non-Brougham trim. Both of these, as I mentioned, are Broughams, which gave you a different interior. On the LTD, you got this biscuits and pleating and buttons interior, which is just phenomenally beautiful. Remember, this is a low-end car, relatively speaking. And just look at the luxuriousness of the seating here, and great feeling fabrics. Beautiful door panels. Yes, it is fake wood, but it looks really good. And on the Park Lane Brougham, you also got an up-level interior with, again, more buttons and biscuits, although this kind of looks like the seats have flabby abs. And the door panels have that faux wood grain, as does the dash. You notice the steering wheels are the same. All Ford 1968 vehicles had this steering wheel with the horn ring down there, unless you got a Thunderbird or something with cruise control where you got the buttons in the steering wheel. But they made 10,400 of these Park Lane four-door hardtops. They made 60,000 of these LTD four-door hardtops. And of those, there were about 1,400 of these Park Lanes that were painted this black cherry color, which I think is beautiful. It's the brochure color for the year as well. And I have a set of optional wheel covers on here. These are not technically correct for US cars because they still have the spinners, which were outlawed after 1967. These are technically US 1967 and before wheel covers. I do have a set without the spinners, but I think it looks cool, and nobody's since pointed that out to me at a car show, so I'm just going to run with it. That's the true Mercury aficionado who would point that out. And I do have the standard wheel covers for this car, which are just black, which I think also looks good. These are the standard wheel covers for this car. And as I said, they made 10,400 of these, 1,400 painted in black cherry. This car, they made 60,000. Guess how many were painted black? Only about 1,500. That's it. Black was a super rare color. And guess how many were black exterior with the black LTD Brougham twin comfort lounge seat interior? Just 115. 115 cars, that's it, out of those 60,000 looked like this from an exterior, color, and interior trim standpoint. So it's just amazing how rare these vehicles were in terms of the production figures back in the day. And today there are so few that survive. I searched for a 68 Park Lane Brougham. I specifically wanted a Brougham maybe for 10, 12 years before I found one that was in nice shape. And I think I only saw maybe 3 for sale in that time period. One was just a total junker. And one was bought by a friend who owns it. Kind of slipped through my hands. It's a beautiful one, black with a red interior and a 428 car. It's a Canadian vehicle. And the LTD I just always thought was handsome. This one came up, a viewer sent it to me. It was on Facebook Marketplace. And it has 9,000 miles. How could I pass that up? Of course, it didn't quite look like this when I got it. It was a true barn find. And I had to have the hood and the deck lid repainted. They were just patinaed beyond repair, if you will, and the driver's door had been repainted at some point. But the rest of the car is all original. The rest of the body panels have their original paint. And the interior is all original and just spectacular. Let's compare the interiors for a second. And here you see Ford has this really simple theme. They both have this theme where all the gauges and this are in this binnacle in front of the driver, and then the passenger side really doesn't have all that much eye candy to look at, but all the Ford controls are underneath that binnacle. Mercury has a row of controls underneath that. They're both disc brake cars, you can tell by the pedal here. And this LTD, this very LTD, I have the window sticker. It costs $4,950 in 1968, which is an expensive vehicle. It's about $45,000 today. It was actually more expensive than this car because the LTD has air conditioning, power windows, power locks, AM/FM radio, and this car does not have air nor does it have power locks or windows, and it just has an AM radio. Those are the main differences. This car stickered for about $4,500 with all the options. So while the base price of the LTD was cheaper, that very black car is actually more expensive than this more up-level Park Lane Brougham. And you can see on the interior of this Mercury, clearly a very different instrument panel theme with the Cyclops speedometer. This one has comfort stream ventilation, which gave you the 2 vents here, but you don't have the air conditioning style vents over on the passenger side. So you just pull a lever at speed, and then it allows the fresh air to come out those upper vents as opposed to the kickwell vents down there. Pretty handy and effective. And of course you have the faux wood grain trimmed wheel, which the LTD does not. It's just a black plastic wheel. I think there's also some other interesting things. The A-pillar trim on the Mercury is padded. This piece of trim that goes over top of the window is padded on the Mercury. On the LTD, this is just hard plastic here. Here, this is nicely and thickly padded. On the LTD, it is not. It's just hard plastic that you can see here. So Ford cheaped out in some areas, but how could you complain if you bought this LTD that this was anything other than a sumptuous interior? All real stitches here. Beautiful buttons. It is fake wood, as I mentioned, but real stitching here. The lights in the doors. It's just a phenomenal looking vehicle. And menacing too. And this one even has a menacing exhaust note to it because the previous owner put a relatively loud Flowmaster exhaust on it, and I was going to change it, but it kind of fits the personality of the car, so I left it. This may be the first car that I've left loud, but I like it. It's good to have one car that's loud, right? Oh yeah. This is just a 392 barrel, 265 horsepower. These LTDs came standard with a 210 horsepower 302 2-barrel carb. This was the next one up, 392 Venturi, 265 horsepower. Then you could get the 394 Venturi premium fuel that was 315 horsepower. Then you could get the 428 premium fuel, which was, I believe, 340-ish horsepower. But the engine's silent. And boy, does it sound great. Yes. So this has a 390 2-barrel regular fuel V8, lower compression. The Park Lane has a 390 4 Venturi, 315 horsepower, which was a standard engine. You could also get the 428 in here too. See if I can open this with one hand. There we go. So this is the 4 Venturi 390. And this one has dual exhaust on it, but quiet. So it's not going to sound quite as good. But equally smooth engine. Oh yeah. Gotta love it. I'll turn this off here. Notice this is a no AC car and just this little teeny tiny 2-row radiator, which I've had record. The AC cars had a 3-row radiator. Needed additional cooling. And the Mercury also has the hood locking in 2 places. The LTD just has the one hood lock. It is a dual stage, but this is a thicker radiator. Also had this one record because the car sat for so many years. So there you have it. Two great choices for 1968. Which one would you pick if you had to take your pick? The Mercury Park Lane Brougham, or the LTD Brougham? Hope you enjoyed this comparison. Where else are you going to see two full-size four-door hardtop vehicles from Ford in 1968? Nowhere else but on Rare Classic Cars. We'll just do a brief drive here in the LTD and then the Park Lane Brougham. I love they both have this, I can't remember what it's called, Moon Rock, Moon Crater, something headliner. But this car just looks, sounds, and feels so badass. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, your four-cylinder turbo doesn't sound like that. And these seats are so comfortable. Great, open, airy view. Four-door hardtops were underappreciated for the longest time, and it's a shame because they're my favorite body style. You get all this air flow in the car, plenty of headroom. Better enjoy that wonderful 390. This car's actually not that horrible of a handler. I'm surprised. It doesn't lean that much for a Ford of the era in the turns or anything. It's pretty good. Oh yeah. What a joy to drive. Best year for Ford. Let me know your opinion if you differ. I don't know how you can though. Just look at that interior. Beautiful. And driving it down the road here, just so smooth. Effortless steering, beautifully soft suspension. What a car. Let's take the other one out. Alright, here we go in the Park Lane Brougham. Seat's a little bit cushier in this one, but not all that noticeably different. Actually, the interior in the LTD feels a little bit richer than this Park Lane Brougham. I don't know if it's just the extra wood grain trim on the glove box door or what it is, but the Brougham definitely feels nice. It has a nice instrument panel, as you can see here. And this one, the 390, is much quieter. They both handle about the same. The LTD may actually even be a little bit softer in terms of the springs. I wouldn't call the Mercury firm at all, but that LTD seems maybe a little bit extra cushy. And the shocks are good. So it's just the springs. These both have relatively new shocks, and the same brand even. Another comfy cruiser. The only thing about these, you got to wind the wheel quite a bit to get it to turn. That's just the Ford steering box with the slow ratio. There's no slop in the wheels. That LTD only has 10,000 miles on it. This car's got 55,000, so high mileage. But just another great vehicle.